Hey you guys, all right, so I thought it would be really cool to go ahead and actually share something with you guys that you might not be aware of this particular service that somebody actually offers. I've actually used this service plenty of times, and when I started talking to my friend Steve, I thought, you know what, this would be really cool to go ahead and do a video on him, just because, you know, when you start thinking about the intricacies of speedometers and, you know, gauges and everything, you start wondering how these things work. And so, well, you know what, you guys, here I am today with Steve Burdette, also known as Speedo King. Now, some of you guys have seen him at some of the shows, maybe you've talked to him, but I actually had the pleasure of coming here and actually seeing how he does his work, and also learning a little bit more about him and how he got to start. So Steve, first of all, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it, man.
No problem.
Tell everybody actually, how did you get your start? Because I know now, but I was very surprised when you told me. So how did this all come about?
Well, probably 20, 25 years ago, I was restoring a lot of scooters back then.
Scooters, so like Vespas. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And I couldn't find all the parts I needed to do the speedometers when I got to that point. So I was able to make a couple pieces by hand, and they were okay, but I thought, since there was interest in it, I looked into getting some pieces laser cut and then screen printed and like that, and I found a way to even make the lenses myself. And these aren't just flat lenses, they're molded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you just decided, I'm just going to go ahead and venture into this because
Pretty
no
much.
one's offering it. And so you know, basically you found a solution to the problem that you were having.
Exactly, and people showed interest, so I thought, okay, it's worth investing some money.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it kind of grew, and it was fun. And then, of course, I got into the Volkswagens eventually.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm stoked. It's at my age, in this time of life, I'm semi-retired.
Okay. Okay.
Because I used to make surfboards full time.
Really?
And now I'm doing it just one day a week, just really to keep my foot in the door and having fun. But this is where I spend most of my time.
Well, that is awesome. Yeah. So, okay, I mean, I love surfing. So as far as making surfboards, how old were you when you first started getting into the surfboard?
Well, it all began in high school. I was doing ding repairs.
Okay.
And I even had, if you remember back then, they had something called work experience.
Oh,
and so you would pretty much be in class up until noon, and then the fifth and sixth period you would go to your job.
Wow.
Well, my job was at home.
Okay.
Repairing surfboards.
How did you talk them into that?
I
They allowed
don't
you
know.
to come home and work on boards?
Yeah, but I didn't always go straight home. Sometimes I'd go to the beach and go surfing.
There it is.
And I'd get to the ding repairs at another time,
That's
the next
cool.
day or whatever.
Wow.
But
and
yeah.
so you were doing it at home?
Right,
Cool.
and then I was doing ding repairs, and I got pretty well known with the shops in Hermosa Beach.
Okay.
And then eventually I was asked if I wanted to be the helper of the laminator at, back then, Rick Surfboards.
Oh, wow.
And the shop became Mangelli Manufacturing.
Okay.
And I worked with Steve Mangelli probably 3 years, from, I don't know, 77, 78 until about 80, 81.
Wow.
And Steve and two other partners created Becker Surfboards, which...
Becker Surfboards, yeah.
They were big. They had probably 5, 6 shops at one time.
Wow.
But now, since Steve's retired,
Okay.
the other two have retired and even passed away.
Wow.
But his son took over the business. I worked for him for a bit, and he went out of business, unfortunately, because of the overhead and the lack of business. But I kind of welcomed that, you know. So I haven't glassed a board up until recently for about a year.
Okay.
And I was just concentrating on my job here.
Right.
Doing my Speedos, then having them available when people call or ask, or people send them to me.
Yeah, like me. I sent them some Speedos.
So
that's so cool.
It's great. I get to work and I just do stuff throughout the day when I can.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. You know, it's interesting when you were talking about the whole surfing thing. I mean, it's crazy. It takes me back in time, and you don't know this, but yeah, my first job was at a surf shop back in the early '80s. I used to take the bus. We lived inland. I lived in Orange, and my buddy and I would hop on the bus and actually go down to Newport. And it's kind of funny because I was 12 years old, and my mom would ask me, what time are you guys going to the beach tomorrow? And I'd say, my buddy and I were going to skateboard down to Main and 17th in Santa Ana to take the first bus to go down there. So we're going to skateboard at 4:30 in the morning holding our boards and go surfing all day. But I used to go into the surf shop and I used to joke around saying, hey, when am I going to get a job here? And the guy would say, how old are you? I go, I'm 12 years old. And he goes, get out of here. But then one day when I was 14 years old, he came in. I went in to go buy my bar wax as I would. And he said, hey, Eddie, do you want a job? And I said, yeah, right. And he said, I asked him, I said, doing what? He said, putting decks together, skateboards together. He said, we're going to start bringing in decks, wheels, and everything. And I thought, all right, sounds good. And he goes, I'll pay you $3 under the table. I'd never heard that term before. And, he said, you could start tomorrow if you want. So I remember coming home that day and told my dad, and he was like, hey, how's the beach? I go, good. I got a job. Can I get a ride on Saturday and Sunday? Because the bus doesn't go down there that early. And he goes, you got a job? He's like, your brother can't even get a job, and he was older than me. But it was interesting because I started doing ding repair on my own in my garage. And, I was okay at it. And I made my first board when I was 16. And I've enjoyed it. So no, I appreciate that, which is super, super cool. So now, obviously, like we were talking about, people, ship you Speedos, and I'll see you at the shows as well. And you've got a whole bunch of Speedos. Tell me the process, how you go through it. So, when somebody sends it to you, like me, I just send it to you and I go, Steve, do your magic, and by the way, you guys, if you've never used Steve's service, let me tell you, it's quick, it's affordable, and it's detailed. It's really, really good. Henceforth, why I keep sending you, as much business as I can, which is really, really cool. But walk me through your magic. What is it that you do?
Okay. Well, let's see. First off, when someone sends me a Speedo, I'll ask him if he wants the housing replated.
Okay.
And I ask that because I take several at a time, so it's gonna take a while before he gets the Speedo back. So if he's in a hurry, he probably doesn't want to go that route.
Okay.
But I have them replated in zinc.
Okay.
So that's
and they look awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, they look awesome.
But if they don't want that, then pretty much just sit at my table here, break it apart, clean it, lube it, test it. There's little tricks I use to make the face look a little better. If it's somewhat tattered, I might spray with a little flat, clear acrylic.
Okay.
And then do a little touch up with some markers or a little paint if I had it.
It's super cool. And I don't know if you can walk me over here as far as looking at the inner workings. It was interesting because right now when we were coming over here, and feel free to have a seat, like how you normally do, I'll just look over your shoulder. My buddy Mark, who is unfortunately my camera guy today, was asking, he said, what makes it turn? Because a lot of people have never seen the inner workings of a speedometer, and especially then, like I'm looking at one right now that's a trip Speedo. Show us, pretend I'm in first grade, man, and you're teaching me how a speedometer works.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to throw my glasses on because I can't see that well sometimes.
Trust me, man, I'm with you.
Well, this is a normal
is that
video.
A beetle?
This is for a clear needle.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's got this particular configuration here and that screw pattern, which
those are the two screws on the back of the housing.
Right. And those were used up until probably 58.
Okay.
Then they went to a different pattern where the screws were further apart like this.
Okay.
And then the mechanism changed too. But
and is that a spring underneath that little screw on the front there? Look how fine that thing is.
Yes, it is. That's a hairspring. And of course, there's a little aluminum cup here and then a magnet underneath. So it creates what they call an eddy effect, right?
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me throw a needle on here just for fun. So anyways, it'll travel with the needle like that.
Okay.
And of course, the drive will spin underneath it. The drive's angled somewhat, but it configures just right where it spins under that cup but doesn't touch it.
Okay,
but if it did touch it, it would definitely, it would just spin that hairspring until it was all bound up and unusable.
Wow.
But that's that. And
that's so cool, man.
So
I never knew that there was a little spring on that.
That allows it to travel like that, and then it returns on its own at lesser RPMs.
Wow. You know, it always blows my mind when you see something like this to think that someone actually went ahead and thought of this.
Oh, yeah.
Some human said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we do this?" And so it'll go ahead and record the speed and so on and so forth. I mean, that's just nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts. And so then as far as the odometer, when it goes turning, I do know what there's a little cog, right? That makes it turn. Is that with the drive?
Right. The drive turns this, what I call a cross gear.
Okay.
And it turns this upright gear to this gear, and pretty much just goes around.
Okay.
Now, if you'll notice, this little disc here has a notch in it.
Okay.
And it'll gather with the gears back here when it makes full rotation, and it'll make one turn. And on this particular one, the notch falls on the seventh wheel. So to set it back to 0, you'd have to put everything into the correct gear at the 7th, and it would all line up that way. So that's pretty much how that works.
Well, that's
and other
pretty
ones,
rad.
like these, for instance, line up on the 3s because they're in this position. And if you put them on the 7s, it wouldn't locate properly.
That's so wild. That is wild. That is super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know if you know this, answer or not, but as far as when you guys look at a bus speedometer, the cable comes in the center, and on a Beetle, it comes in at an angle from the side. Why is that? Do you know?
I don't.
I wonder if that's the only thing that I could think of is that maybe like the way that the speedometer is on the dash, I'm guessing that it's going toward that left front wheel perhaps, where on a bus, it's going to have to go straight down and over. That's my only guess. But, you would think that in the efficiency, matter that you would go ahead and make them the same. But
yeah, you think so.
that is cool, man. That is really cool. So random question for you, but what is the most common thing that goes wrong with the Speedos that you see?
I think that's a good question, and it's so simple. Is what I'm just throwing it out there. But what I notice first is people complain about their cable either breaking, or it makes a howling noise or a whirling noise.
I've had one of those. What causes that?
What I understand is that the drive here just gets lack of lubrication.
Oh, wow.
And so it really needs to be serviced I would just throw it out there, but maybe every 20, 30,000 miles.
Okay.
These are so well made that they should never, ever end. You know what I mean? They'll run forever as long as they're properly maintained.
Wow.
But they're impressive, I think.
I think
VDO
that's super
did a really
cool.
good job.
Now, is there one that's more difficult than the other to actually go ahead and do?
Yes.
Okay.
Another good question. The hardest ones, I think, to work on are the Carmen Ghia from like 67 till about 71.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, they're difficult. They don't use any gaskets with the lens like they would on the bus and the Bug. So it's a piece of glass up against the trim piece, and then there's that one little beauty piece.
Okay.
And you got to be really careful getting them off. And that trim piece can break because there's a metal piece and then there's a plastic piece underneath it.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Plastic piece.
Well, it's sprayed white, and then the metal piece has little grooves cut in it.
Okay.
Like for the markings from 0 to 90. And in between. Another thing too is the actual mechanism itself has these little screws that are kind of buried. And in order to get the needle off, you have to secure pretty much either the hairspring or the speed cup, and then just work it off because it's a friction fit. But getting at these screws are almost impossible with that piece on there.
Okay.
So you have to like play with them and use a wrench, and it is a bad design. It's almost like they didn't want you to take them apart. But those are kind of
or maybe just get a new one.
Those are a pain to work on. But other than that, everything's okay.
No, that's cool. And then I would think that whether it's, in kilometers or miles per hour, same thing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just this gear right here pretty much tells you, depending on how many teeth it has, whether it's mph or kilometers.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay, all right. Because I know, can I see that housing real quick? I want to show people. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. Maybe perhaps not on this one, but usually, isn't there a number that tells you the calibration?
Yeah, it's.
No, that's April of '55.
Right.
Oh, very cool.
The one that does the calibration is right here,
Ah, there it is. Okay.
There's a W, and then there's a 0.80,
Okay.
and that's the ratio.
That's the ratio. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that correlates with that little gear then, huh?
Pretty much.
Okay.
It tells you more so, I think, it's for where the needle should hit at a certain amount of RPMs,
Okay.
like a factory test.
Okay.
And I have a crude method of doing it, but I use a 1200 drill motor.
Yeah.
And I trigger with the needle at 0, which was roughly about there.
Okay.
And it should hit 90 miles an hour at 1200 RPM.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Because I know, I mean, especially with people that are putting, I mean, I've done it on some of my buses where you put larger tires, the all-terrain tires and so forth. That will definitely affect the speed or what it's reading, which, you know, sometimes I'll just cheat and look at my phone on the speedometer app and I'm like, oh, really? I'm doing 54? That's why people are passing me.
And it also affects the mileage because the wheel turns at a different rate.
Okay, that's true,
So
yeah.
you may be getting better mileage, but you're not.
But
or
you're
vice
not.
versa.
Right,
Depending
right.
on where there's smaller tires.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I had a bus one time that had bug tires that had 165s on it, and I mean that thing was humming. You know, I mean it sounded like it was revving really high, and I was just barely moving. And I'm like, okay, I need bigger tires. Yeah. No, this is really cool, and I love seeing all your little screws and everything. And I'll tell you, you definitely got to have some good eyes to be dealing with all these small little parts. But it's cool hearing you say that these are so well made that you really only need to service them maybe once every 20 to 30,000 miles.
Yeah,
you know?
I honestly believe that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is very cool. It's funny, I totally random, but I was in Guatemala many, many years ago on a trip, I had family down there, and I wanted to go to one of the dealerships just to see if they had any parts, you know, and my mom was like, oh, here we go. And I went in and they had some stuff, but what was cool was they had some bus, NOS speedometers. And it was interesting because I ended up buying, I think I bought like 6 or 7 of those. And, it was interesting because the bezels weren't chrome. They were actually more like opaque, which was strange. So is there a difference between like I guess you could say commercial one and a non-commercial type of speedometer as far as the trim ring goes on it?
What I've noticed is sometimes a later production of the same thing, like for instance, if it was a split window Speedo and it was made new in 72, 73, but it looks just like it. Sometimes they will use a ring that's not actually chromed.
Okay.
It's more of a...
like a brushed or like aluminum or...
This is pretty much the same one right here, I think, which is like on
yeah.
a 70, 71.
Okay.
It's I don't know exactly what the process is.
Yeah.
But when I get them, I can't really clean them to the point that they would be perfect like the original. So a lot of times I'll just spray them with a little primer and try to tune them up as far as the little dents go. And then I spray it silver.
Okay, yeah.
But that's only really a 2-year
That's what it looks
period.
like a silver. Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's it?
It's pretty much 70, 71, and then they went to a black ring.
Oh, that's right.
Like this one. It's 72, and these continued up until, for the bugs, probably up until late 70s.
Okay.
And then Super Beetle had its own face, which is bigger.
Is it kind of like a bronze? Or what's like a weird,
It's
or like anodized?
It is.
Almost.
It's almost like a dark purple.
Okay.
Like a midnight purple, if there's such a thing.
Yeah.
But then they tend to fade, and once again, I cheat, and when I do my restoration, I'll sand them a little bit, or a little steel wool, and I'll just use flat black.
Okay.
And I think they're acceptable that way.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
get any crap for that.
Yeah. It was funny. I was taking a Super Beetle apart, and, you know, like on these, is it okay to pick it up?
Of course.
Yeah. On these, for those of you guys that have never seen it, you've got the little ears on the speedometer, so you've got the screws on here, and then sometimes if you're lucky enough, you can loosen them and then just kind of clock it and then, pull it out. But on the Super Beetle one, it doesn't have these. It's got some weird, I ended up hammering that thing. But,
Well, what they do is they put it in from they put it in from the front.
From the
And they
front.
hold it in place with this rubber ring. they slip over, and
Okay.
it pretty much just holds it tight to the back of the dash.
Okay. So I'm thinking that rubber ring, which was probably that plastic or whatever, I wonder if it might have dried up because that thing was hard. So, I mean, granted, you know, what, 50 years or so, but yeah, that is cool. Very, very cool. Now, and so just so you guys can see, here are some Vespa Speedos, right? Those are Vespa, Steve?
Yes, they are.
Very cool. Do you want to show one of those?
Sure.
Those, I mean, it's really neat. So obviously there are a lot of Volkswagen guys that also are Vespa, you know, fans, you know, and, oh, there we go. So it's kind of neat, you know, and like I've said before, when I started doing these videos, I always think it's interesting that we walk around these car shows, we see people at the car shows, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, there's a guy who's offering speedometers, you know, but hearing the story behind it, I've always found very, very fascinating, that it's like, wow, what a trip. Who would have known? And this is how it works, and so on and so forth. But, you know, it's, I like this. Here's another question for you. When I do look at something like this, what would you say was your biggest learning curve when you started getting into this? Did you ever think at one point in time, like, oh, dude, I've gone a little too deep?
Oh, gosh. I don't know how to answer that. But thinking back, of course, I was pretty much just figuring it out for myself.
Okay.
And I did a little of the Veglia speedometers for the Vespas and Lambretta scooters. And then getting onto the Volkswagen, gosh, there's some things, certain things it wasn't, like, for instance, the needle wouldn't move properly. So I wasn't sure whether it was the hairspring itself or something binding it up, or maybe it's rubbing on the bottom of the faceplate. So there's a lot of things that it could have been. For instance, the distance between where the little I don't know what you call it, but it's not a plate, but it's a little bar that goes across that holds the needle shaft and the hairspring, and then the needle presses into it. And sometimes, if it doesn't sit properly into the recess of the magnet, it just won't work properly. It'd just be grinding. And if you tried to trigger it, it would, once again, it would spin the hairspring and destroy it. So I try not to do that. And
yeah, I can imagine. Now, and when you're talking about the hairspring getting destroyed, do you have a supply of core Speedos for?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah?
Let me show you.
All right, step right in.
Here's what I got.
Because I figure there's probably a ton of parts that are no longer, I love it, reproduced.
Yeah, these are actually marine speedometers that I purchased, probably 600-700 of them in a bulk purchase.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I did it because they had the same, I mean, they're very much like the split window bus pieces.
Yeah, look at that straight shaft too.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I pretty much take these apart for other parts and use them on the Volkswagen stuff. And they're all video.
They are video?
They are video.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, you can really see the similarity and stuff. And if I had one handy, I could show you what they look like before I take them apart. But this allows me to do, this is how I was able to do the trip meters for the buses.
Okay.
You see, these do have two different odometers.
Yeah. Oh, so wait, hold on a second. So you're saying you could take a regular bus Speedo, split window bus speedometer, and make it a trip Speedo? Dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. What? Okay, I didn't know that. Man, I'm going to hit you up for one of those. I've got one bus in particular that would be really cool to do that too. So, okay, cool. That's awesome. Well, that's great. That is really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so neat.
I have a lot of parts that way.
Okay.
For instance, the hairsprings are in abundance with that. Everything's new old stock because these are just that. They're new old stock Speedos that weren't selling because they're so outdated.
Wow.
I think they were made in the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, this is so cool. I mean, I love this. You got your trim ring. It's your little assembly line here in all the faces. That's neat. I'll tell you, you know, it's funny when you're saying, like, you know, the older you get and, you know, glasses and everything else. One of the things that I'm impressed by, because there's no way I'd be able to do it, man, is having a steady hand to, you know, I was looking at some of your little brushes and stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, not me, man. Too much coffee, I'd be like, Well, but no, that's impressive. That is really, really cool. Very cool. Well, I'll tell you, I'm impressed, and I'm so glad that I got a chance to go ahead and check this out. And I hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. I think it's pretty neat to see how it all comes together, because like I said, I'll send him a box with maybe like, a couple Speedos, and then, I don't see the process. When I get it back, I just go, dude, this is so nice. You look at the back of it and it's plated and it's just beautiful. And it's like, okay, time to put it in the car. And speaking of that, I will say, I got to give you kudos, because there was this one gentleman whose daughter was going to go ahead and get her first car, which was going to be a Beetle. And I think it was a 69. And anyway, he came to the shop and said, hey, I want to get this speedometer fixed and so forth. And I said, hey, I got just the right guy. And I sent it to you and told him the story about how this girl was in high school and she was getting her first car, and her first car was going to be a VW Bug. And she wanted to go ahead and get the speedometer fixed, and that was the last thing holding up the project. So I sent it to Steve, and Steve sent it back with 0 for the charge. And he said, my first car was a Bug. And he goes, and I love the story, so I want to go ahead and make sure to help her get on her way. And I thought, that's so cool. So, and with that, it's a good segue into your Bug.
Exactly.
So when I first walked up and I saw this, I thought, no way, this is cool. Well, that is that car, isn't it? Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and we'll cut, and would you give us a tour of that car?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Well, you guys, so say goodbye to the workshop. I'm going to obviously put up Steve's details, so if you've got your speedometer that you want to go ahead and get restored or even just touched up, right? I mean, you don't have to go full bore on it. What's really cool too is he's super cool and cognizant of the fact that perhaps you have a very original car and you don't want to zero out the miles. He'll keep it at the miles that you want it. So it's just really nice to have a personable, human being to actually, walk you through what you want. And like I said before, your prices are, dude, seriously, very, very, very affordable. So anyway,
Thank you.
But yeah, so let's go check out the car. All right, cool.
All right.
All right, let's go. All right, you guys, so this is the car that, where it all started, right? Your whole Volkswagen experience. So tell everybody about the story about this car.
Okay. When I finished high school, my dad gave me this car for me to be able to get out to the
Awesome.
local junior college,
Okay.
as they called it back then.
Uh-huh.
But it was my first car. I learned how to drive in this, took the test in it and everything. And
No way.
yeah, I kept it for a few years.
Okay.
And then I moved up to a Super Beetle.
Oh, Super Beetle. What year
A
was
little
the
more
Super
power.
Beetle?
71.
Okay, all right.
And it had dual part heads
Uh-huh.
and more power for sure.
Okay.
And kept that for a few years as well.
And so now what happened, and by the way, this is a 65, you guys. 65, and what I was tripping out on, it's original black color
Yes.
car, which is kind of cool. I don't see too many black cars, and I'd heard some stat a long time ago that Volkswagen would pick the straightest ones off the assembly line to go ahead and paint black. So kind of cool. But now, so the 65 went away, the 71 came in. Where did it go?
Well, the 71 I had actually traded with some cash for a diesel Rabbit, 79.
Okay, but wait, where did this one go though in the meantime?
This one went to my brother.
Oh, okay.
In fact,
So it stayed in the
yeah,
family.
going back
Okay.
when I bought the 71 Super Beetle,
Uh-huh.
I sold this to my brother for $300. And at the time, that's all I thought it was worth.
Right.
This was like 1980.
Okay.
And Volkswagens were everywhere.
Yeah.
They were a dime a dozen, so
Yeah.
I thought I made out okay with $300.
Uh-huh.
But he kept it all those years, and I asked him if I could buy the car back.
No way.
Yeah, and he had just put some time and money into it.
Okay.
And he
Perfect.
painted it, did the upholstery,
Uh-huh.
and he said, he kind of shot me down there, and he's not going to sell it. And then about 6 months later,
Uh-huh.
we were at a wedding for our nephew,
Okay.
and his wife told me, she goes, your brother's been talking about that car.
Wait, and this is at the wedding
Yes.
that he's talking about
Yeah.
this. Okay.
And
Uh-huh.
she said, he's talking about giving you that car. And I
Giving
go,
you that car.
And I go, oh, don't tease me, don't tease me.
Yeah.
So within a couple of days, we were at this get-together,
Uh-huh.
and he told me, he goes, you know, I've been thinking about it and I want to give you the car. And he had been drinking a little, so I thought, let me check with you in the morning and see if you still feel the same way.
I would have been like pink slip right now.
And he goes, no, Stevie, I want you to have the car. Just come and get it.
No
way.
way.
Yeah, so a week later, I took a bus up to Bakersfield.
Not a VW bus, just a bus?
The bus, yeah, a commuter bus, out of, you know, from the airport there.
Okay.
And he picked me up, and we had some lunch with my nephew up there, and wound up staying the night, and then driving home the next day. And
no way.
Drove it home. And,
no way.
Yep.
So, from that point on that you got it back, and when was the last time that you had seen it prior to that? Had it been a while?
Just maybe being up at his house in Bakersfield. He liked to collect cars. He had a lot of things.
Okay. But that's awesome that he kept it. I mean, all those years.
All those years. And
which
his
is really
kids
cool.
drove it.
Okay.
And then I think for a period there, he just put it in the garage and left it there.
Okay.
Because he does pest control. So he has pest control trucks.
Okay.
He's got his own vehicle. His wife's got a car. And
oh, good. So at least it wasn't, I mean, when you said his kids drove it too, you know, you always are like, oh my God, what happened to it, you know?
Yeah.
Now, this is rad, man. So I don't know if you guys noticed, it's a sunroof edition as well, which is super cool. Give us a quick little tour, show us the inside and all that. So I'm still tripping out on the fact that it's a black car, but look at this thing.
Yeah.
So now, how long has that been since you got it back?
Oh, I think close to 10 years.
Wow, that's so cool. Now, you said that he had redone the upholstery.
Right.
Okay, but you're thinking of maybe going back to the oxide red, maybe?
Yeah, I like the stock look.
Uh-huh.
And of course, the pouch there is falling apart.
Uh-huh.
And the seats splitting. So definitely want to have it look like I recall back in the day.
Okay. No, that's neat, man. I mean, the amount of memories that you must have. I mean, what did it feel like when you were driving home after you got it? Were you just kind of like, dude, it's back?
Yeah. Well, one thing, I hadn't driven a stick in a few years, so it was a little awkward.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd think that it would be like riding a bike, right?
Right. Well, by the time I got to the freeway from his house, I was pretty much good to go.
Okay. All right. Engine-wise, is it still 40 horse or is it a 16?
It is.
Is.
Everything's stock except
that's so
we have
cool.
an alternator.
Can we check it out?
Of course.
Oh, okay. So you put an alternator in it.
It's got an alternator on it, and when the carburetor failed, we put a.
Did you guys see the plates? That's rad, dude. That's so cool.
So the carburetor is a little bigger than the stock one. But that's what's available.
Awesome, man.
Days.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like it stock.
That's cool. Yeah, 40 horses seem to be bulletproof, so that's cool.
Yeah, and it's
How
got
cool.
great power in the hills.
Look at the apron, dude. It's so clean. That's awesome. Well, that's neat, man. That is really, really neat. Well, I got to tell you, Steve, it's really cool to see this. It's cool to see the story. It's really cool to meet you and actually get a chance to chat with you, because normally it's just business, you know.
Sure.
But I think it's really neat that you've devoted yourself to go ahead and actually really seriously put a lot of smiles on people's faces because of the fact that you're offering the service. So I wish you many more years of doing it, and hopefully people that are watching this video will also consider giving you some business, because I'll tell you guys, one of the things that we see a lot of these days is, mom and pop, type of shops closing and so forth. And there's hardly that many businesses now that actually still do a craft, like this. And I think it's definitely something that I like to get the word out about, because if we don't support it, well, then it goes away.
True.
So anyway. No, super cool, man. Super cool. So thank you for your time, and thank you for just your generosity, man, for everything that you did for that one girl. I thought that was really, really cool.
It made me feel good to do it. So it really did.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's what it's all about, you guys, doing something that makes you feel good, being of service. I think it's rad. Yeah. So very cool. So there you go, you guys. I'll put the info up on the screen. Give Steve a call, shoot him an email, and get your Speedo either serviced or completely restored, whatever it is that you're looking for. And if you're like me, whenever you get a chance, if you've got extra Speedos laying around, here's the deal. What if Steve next year wins the lotto and he's like, hey man, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go surfing around the world, and then no more Speedos. Okay, so send him all your Speedos. I think during COVID or something, I might have sent you like 4 or 5 Speedos at a time. And I was like, here, dude, just do these for me now. You know, I wanna make sure that we go ahead and actually have these done. So I think I still have, I think I've only used one of them, but at least I know that at least I've got some good stuff in stock. So anyway, all right, you guys, thank you for watching. And yeah, leave a comment for Steve and then reach out to him. So Steve, thanks again, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Take care, you guys.